Hello, podheads, and welcome back to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. I'm your host today, Holly Spear.
And I'm Kylie Colwell.
And Kate is on sick leave today. We've given her an excused absence, I guess, but she's going to miss out because this is my favorite case. This is my peak case, you know? So I've even thought about doing like a little side quest over my dead pod because there's so much information in this case. If that's something you would like, maybe comment on this episode if you would listen to that, and maybe I'll do that sometime. A little side quest over my dead pod, and I'll tell the girls about the story. And I'll go ahead and tell you what it is. This is the story of Nona Dirksmeyer.
You have been talking about this since I met you.
I've been obsessed with this case for forever. It's my case, you know what I mean? Like my case.
Okay, high expectations. Let's do it.
Oh gosh, okay. Okay, so Nona Dirksmeyer was born December 26, 1985. She grew up in Russellville, Arkansas, with four brothers and one sister. Russellville, Arkansas is a mid-sized city, and I say mid-sized because it's mid-sized for Arkansas, located in the Arkansas River Valley, about halfway between Little Rock and Fort Smith along Interstate 40. It's home to Arkansas Tech, and Russellville has a population of around 30,000 people. That's today, making it one of the larger cities in west central Arkansas. So Nona's parents are Paul and Carol Dirksmeyer, and she has a normal life. She has a great relationship with her siblings, a nice home, and on the outside, everything in Nona's life looks picture perfect. Nona's described as sweet, kind, funny, smart, and motivated, and everyone in town just knew that she would do something great with her life. She really set out to make a difference in others' lives too. Not only was Nona amazing and radiated beauty inside, she was also stunning. Like, she's beautiful. I don't know if you want to look up a picture of her, but she's gorgeous. So it's not surprising that Nona would end up joining the pageant world, which was shocking to some people because people say that Nona was very, very shy. But it really kind of made her come out of her shell and come into her own. So she went on to win Polk County Beauty Queen, Miss Teen Nebo, Miss Petty Jean Valley, and she also competed in Miss Arkansas. And her platform was preventing child abuse. It was deeply personal to her because Nona herself was actually a victim. Unfortunately, Nona had been abused by her own father throughout her childhood. But Nona didn't tell anyone at the time that it was going on. She kept this horrible secret to herself until her father passed away, and Nona felt safe enough to tell her mom when she was only 10 years old. She carried that alone for a big part of her childhood. When Nona's mom found out, it was a huge shock. It was not one of those situations where there was like a suspicion or it was just kind of like swept under the rug. I think this was a big shock to Nona's entire family.
So, are you talking about like sexual abuse?
Yes. So I can only assume that this was also heartbreaking to her mother and the rest of their family. Nona's mother, Carol, said it was horrible. I just couldn't believe something like that would happen. But I knew enough to know that she was telling the truth. Instead of letting this horrible, tragic situation define her, Nona grew up and she became a platform to help others. She became an advocate for other children victims, using her own trauma to connect with vulnerable children. In her free time, she volunteered and sang at church. So she's just like the perfect human, honestly. By the time that Nona reached high school, she'd started dating her longtime friend, a guy named Kevin Jones. And Nona and Kevin had known each other since they were little kids. They actually went to Dover School District together, which is the little town right beside Russellville. Kevin became a safe place for Nona, and Kevin was actually one of the first people that Nona confided in about her father's abuse. Soon enough, their friendship turned romantic and they fell in love. And from that point on, they were completely inseparable. I'm talking about calling each other all the time, texting each other constantly. I mean, they were always together. Just that couple. I feel like everybody either had that kind of relationship or knew of that kind of relationship when you're around like 17 to 19. That's kind of like how you are, you know?
And it's like, oh, they're getting married for sure.
Yes. They are getting married, and that's what her family thought too. They were like, they're just gonna wait till they're out of high school and then maybe out of college, but they will be getting married, is what everyone thought. So Kevin's family loved Nona, and Kevin's mom felt like Kevin had found the person that he was going to marry. Nona's mom ends up remarrying when Nona was 19 years old to a man named Dwayne. And Nona and her mom actually end up moving in with the new husband. And so now Nona is living under his house and his rules, and Dwayne is said to be very strict. And we know that because he says that himself on his Dateline interview. He talks about how he made Nona come home at 9 o'clock every single night with no exceptions. Mind you, she's 19 at this time, so he ran a tight ship at the house. He demanded that the house was consistently in tip-top shape and was excessively clean, and that his wife cook every meal for him. Also, Nona and her mom had animals previously before they moved in with him, and he had a no pets in the house policy.
Yeah, I would not be on board with this.
Yeah, and Nona's not either, and that is why she ends up moving out with the help of her mom, and she moves into some apartments in town. And at one point, Dwayne and Nona's mom actually come to visit her at the apartment, and Dwayne says he never comes over there, but he told Dateline that it was so messy that he had to get out of there because Nona was a slob. Yeah, we'll just move on from Dwayne. So Nona's apartment's in a great part of town. It's situated in the middle of these nice, middle class family homes where people just walk down the street with no fear. Families let their kids ride bikes through the neighborhood, etc. It's called the Inglewoods Apartments because it's on Inglewood Street. And it's not like a mega apartment complex. It's like 3 or 4 maybe buildings, and each building only has a few apartments in it. And the apartments are like upstairs, downstairs. So it's more like a duplex situation. And the apartments sit up on a hill and they have woods behind them that go up this mountain called Skyline. So it's a really good spot for a young unmarried girl. She and Kevin don't live together, but they end up starting college together in 2004 at Arkansas Tech University, which is where I went to college. Nona plans to major in music and everything's going normal. Then, when Nona is a sophomore, Kevin decides to transfer to the University of Arkansas, which is in Fayetteville. So that's about 2 hours away from Russellville. So now Nona and Kevin are long distance, and they're not really used to this life. I think it probably does impact their relationship, but it's not horrible. A lot of couples do it. It's only 2 hours. Also, Kevin has family in Russellville, so he visits a lot on the weekends. And that is what he's doing on December 14th, 2005. Kevin comes home for Christmas break, and the first thing he does is immediately stop and see his love, Nona. They hang out that evening and they discuss how they both have a lot going on the next day, which would be the 15th. Nona has a couple finals to finish in the morning. Later that day, she plans to volunteer with the Big Sis Little Sis group that she works with. And that next day, Kevin plans to go with his mom to a holiday party at the school she worked at, and she is a librarian at Dover School. Kevin tells Nona that he'll call her in between her finals and kind of check in and see how they're going. But they spend that afternoon together on the 14th. Then Kevin headed home to his family's house, which was about 10 minutes away, around midnight. When Kevin arrived home, of course, he and Nona talk again on the phone at about 1:30. So Nona goes to bed, planning on getting up and taking her final exam in the morning. At 9:04 a.m., Kevin texts Nona and says, "Good morning, Cuddle Muffin. I love you, and I hope you have a great day."
That was so hard for you to say, wasn't
I
it?
know, yeah. It's so sweet, but also so hard to get out of your mouth. At this point, Nona would have already taken or been taking her morning final. Kevin's text goes unanswered. And I assume this is kind of odd for their relationship because they had this kind of constant stream of communication. So it seems a bit odd to Kevin. He sends her another text message around 4:28 p.m. and he says, quote, "You alive?" 4:28 turns into 6 p.m. and Kevin has to go to this holiday party with his mom. Kevin's dad is actually working in Louisiana doing post-Katrina cleanup, so his mom doesn't want to go alone, so she's taking Kevin with him. Kevin and his mom are on their way when Kevin's mom notices that he seems a little bit distant or worried about something. Kevin tells his mom that he hasn't been able to get a hold of Nona all day and it was making him worried. Now Kevin's mom, who loves Nona, is concerned too. Kevin says he doesn't even feel up to the party because he's just going to be worried about Nona the whole time. And we know this feeling, our significant other is not replying and all the worst things go through your mind. So he's crashing out right now. He calls Nona's mom and he gets no answer. He calls Nona's stepdad, who tells him that he's at home, but he hasn't heard from Nona today. So on the way to the party, he's like, "I'm going to go ahead and go, but I'm going to have my friend stop in and check on Nona." So he calls his friend Ryan, and Ryan is a pizza delivery guy in Russellville. He's usually works that area, so maybe he's going to be around. So he calls him. He asks if he wouldn't mind just going and checking on Nona, and Ryan says, of course. So he drives by the apartments and he calls Kevin and he says, Nona's car is at her apartment. She drives a silver Mustang and it's parked like right outside. He says that there's also lights on. So he's not really sure like if he should knock on the door or if he should leave her alone. And Kevin's like, no, that's really, really strange. You need to go lay eyes on her. Like, please go knock on her door and make sure she's okay. So that's what Ryan does. He knocks on the door and no one answers. So at this point, everybody feels pretty confident that something's wrong. Kevin and his mom head to Nona's apartment immediately to go check on her. They knocked on her door, and again, nothing. They tried to pry open the door and shimmy the lock, but it wouldn't budge. And Kevin actually has a key to Nona's apartment, but he's left it at home. He didn't plan on coming by Nona's apartment that day. Nona's mom and Kevin were the only ones to have keys to Nona's apartment, and that's going to be important later. Kevin and his friend Ryan actually end up going around back where Nona has a sliding glass door. She usually keeps one of those security bars. I don't know what they're called, but those bars that slide in the grooves of a sliding door and keep it, even if somebody tries to break in, like you can't open the door. But they notice at this time it's not there. Kevin knows that this is weird in itself because usually Nona would have that there and she's at home alone, so she would definitely have put that out. Kevin and Ryan are trying to shimmy the sliding glass door when Ryan grabs Kevin and says, Kevin, do you not see her? And he points to where Nona is laying face down in her living room. Kevin yanks open the locked sliding glass door and runs to Nona. She's nude, laying in the pool of her own blood. She's wearing only one sock. Kevin immediately ran up to Nona and grabbed her body and was breaking down, trying to wake her up. He flips her face around to him and he's trying to perform CPR, but her teeth are so clenched that he can't even get air into her mouth. Nona felt cold and stiff, but 19-year-old Kevin had never seen a scene like this, and he was frantically and desperately trying to help resuscitate Nona. Kevin told Dateline that all he could think about was getting her to the hospital until he realized that he should call an ambulance. Kevin's mom runs to call 911. She tells the boys, try not to touch anything because we don't know what's happened here. Kevin is actually straddling Nona at this point, screaming while they wait for police. This is until he feels a hole in the back of her head that is sharp and wet with bone. Police arrive, and it is immediately clear that Nona is dead, and she's been dead for a while. It was also immediately obvious that Nona had stab marks. She was stabbed in the neck and around the shoulders. Nona was also hit in the head. Police believe that she was hit with a lamp from her apartment, and this was like a very heavy lamp with a thick base. And Nona was hit so hard with this lamp that it was in three pieces on the floor next to her. Their light bulb was still attached to the lamp and it had a blood stain on it. When police arrived, Kevin was completely covered in Nona's blood. Police begin their preliminary investigation. First, they note that there was no signs of a break-in. No broken glass, no broken door frames, which means either Nona let this person in or they had a key. There was blood on the blinds covering the sliding glass door. There was blood on the glass door, the light bulb, and of course blood all around Nona. There was also an empty condom wrapper found on the table next to where Nona was laying. And this was just the wrapper, no condom inside. Nona's cell phone was found near her body and the battery had been taken out. So this is 2004, so we know that, we don't have an iPhone battery. It's like one of those detachable batteries from the back of the phone. But police are able to see in Nona's phone that at 11:04, Nona got a text message that she never responded to.
So was the sliding glass door in the back locked? It just didn't have that bar.
It was locked without the bar.
So the sliding glass door and the front door were both locked.
Yes.
Weird. Okay.
Very weird. And so when Kevin entered the apartment, he was just able to jerk the sliding door so hard that it just unlocked itself. While we're talking about the investigation, let's talk about the rest of the investigation, except there is none, because that's basically all police do.
They just look at her phone?
Yeah, there were no samples taken of the blood on the blinds. which is where we think the killer exited because the back door, there's blood by the back door. They did not dust for fingerprints on the floor or the blinds. They skipped out on the whole shoe print portion of the investigation and decided that it was not a stair day, and they did not even go upstairs to investigate the upstairs of Nona's apartment.
I have no words. They've done nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically nothing. I think it was hard because all of the investigators investigating this case had never seen a murder like this or seen maybe even seen a homicide before. So I think it was just a lot of people who didn't have the resources or knowledge to do this. I don't know. I'm trying to give them grace. So
I don't know. Forensic Files has been airing since the 90s.
yeah, it's true. Investigating this scene really would have been a waste of police's time because they had already decided who had killed Nona, and that was Kevin Jones. I mean, of course, police are going to cover their bases. We know that the husband slash boyfriend always did it, but they're really assuming some things here with not that much evidence. Police didn't like that Kevin was covered in Nona's blood when they arrived. They thought that it was a pretty convenient cover up and destruction of evidence. They think that Kevin ran in, grabbed Nona so that there would be no excuse as to why his DNA was all over her and her body.
That doesn't make sense because he was with his mom like
Yeah,
all day.
he was with his mom all day. He also ran into friends. He went and ran errands in Russellville. He was spotted in town. He had friends back up his story that they saw him. His family owns a gas station in Dover, and I think he came there twice throughout the day because his grandma works there. And so he was spotted throughout the day. Police talked about how there was a small window where he could have killed Nona in his schedule where no one saw him. But yeah, I mean, I've never been in a situation where someone, like a dead body in front of me, but I feel like everybody responds differently. They seem to think that it was strange for him to run up to her and basically like cover himself with her blood.
I don't know. I see it all the time with
Yeah,
people like running to their loved ones, trying to hold them or save them. Like you don't process that they're dead and you can't do anything.
right, exactly. But they see this as kind of like a way that he's covering it up. And they think that all the text messages that he sent her throughout the day and all the calls were just him establishing an alibi, basically. Police say that Kevin tried to make it obvious that he was covered in Nona's blood, like he was pointing it out, which I don't even know what that means. They also said that at some point in the process, Kevin said that he watched a lot of Law and Order. Yeah, so does like a lot of the population. They were like, we find it weird that he would say that. And he knows how to cover up a crime scene and he knows how to establish an alibi. Like watches a lot of Law and Order. And I don't know what context he said that in. Maybe they asked him. I don't know. But
I don't know, maybe these cops should watch some.
yeah, yeah, exactly. There's that. Take it for what you will. Also, remember that Kevin sent that text to Nona at 4:28 that said, "You alive." Now, this gets tossed around too. To me, this is a completely normal statement that a young person would say. I say it to Luke all the time. Like, it's not that deep, but they take it very deeply. Now, something that is valid is that Kevin and Nona's mom were the only ones that had keys to her apartment. That is a fair reason to look at Kevin since we know that there was no evidence of forced entry. To counter this, it's obvious that Nona could have let anyone into her apartment. She could have opened the door for them, or they could have tricked her into opening the door. And I don't know this for sure, but you could lock a door on your way out. So it's not like they would have to have a key per se to lock the door on the way out. Police immediately take Kevin in for an interrogation that night, and Kevin sticks to his story. He said that he wouldn't hurt a hair on Nona's head and that he would kill himself before he hurt Nona. He never asked for an attorney the entire time. He starts freaking out when he realizes that investigators think that he's the killer. He starts pleading with them to go check his alibi. He says, "Go ask people where I was the whole night. Go ask my family. Go ask my friends." He kept repeating, "What can I do to show you that I didn't do it? Tell me how to prove it." When Kevin was left in the interrogation room alone, of course, we know that you're being filmed in the interrogation room, but I feel like a lot of people maybe don't know that. But yeah, you are. Kevin starts hitting and punching the back of his chair that he's sitting in, and he does this over and over again. He's upset. Seems like a very frustrating situation to him to be pleading for them to just go check his alibi, go check his story that he didn't do this. And also, this is hours after he just found Nona dead. But police kind of use this as a way to say, well, see, he's violent. He's violent when he gets mad. He could do something like that because he was like hitting the back of his chair. Police give him the full treatment. They take pictures of his hands and body to preserve evidence in case he has defensive wounds on him, which he really didn't. He had some very minor scratches. We'll talk about those later. But police had reason to believe that Nona defended herself pretty fiercely, and Kevin likely would have had bigger scratches on his hands than what he had, or that's what the defense will argue later. In the meantime, Nona's body is autopsied and police gather intel from the community. As we know, Nona was nude. However, there was no sign of rape or sexual assault, which is confusing because of the empty condom wrapper, obviously. You could maybe say someone tried to rape her or use the condom like with no penetration, or we just didn't see signs of sexual assault because the medical examiner was able to say that he could not rule it out, but he also could not rule it in. But around Nona's body, investigators found her bra, her pants, and her underwear inside of her pants, which made them think that they had been pulled off at the same time because the underwear were still inside the pants, which is not something that I would think you would do yourself.
No.
Nona was stabbed in the shoulders, and they think that this was because she was shrugging her shoulders to protect her neck as she was being stabbed. There was carpet burn on her face, and her lip had been split. The medical examiner said that the killer had fractured her skull, pushing bone inward nearly 3/8 of an inch, damaging her brain and bruising her face. They also found that there were direct blows to her face, like punches. She was also strangled, which we know because there was hemorrhaging in both of her eyes, and she had a broken hyoid bone. They believe that Nona was murdered late December 14th into the early morning hours of December 15th, but they couldn't say exact times, which leaves like a pretty wide window that she could have been killed. Another thing that really confuses people is that when Nona was found, she was found face down, but she had lividity on both sides of her body. So she would have been initially laying on her back and then flipped to be laying on her stomach at some point after death. And it wasn't Kevin.
So the killer stuck around for a while for there to be like lividity on one side.
Yeah. And that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the investigation. And so I have many questions about that, but it doesn't seem to like get talked about a lot. I found it in a report. I don't know. It seems like a big deal to me, but I don't know what happened to that. They were also able to tell that she was hit in the back of the head with a lamp while she was already laying face down on the ground. So she might have already been unconscious at that point and then hit in the head. Police start questioning Nona's friends, family, and neighbors, and they go through Nona's phone, of course, which is how they learn that Nona was in fact seeing other men. And Kevin seemed to have no idea, unfortunately. The other men that Nona was casually seeing, their stories actually checked out, and the police also questioned Nona's stepfather, who was able to provide a solid alibi. He claims that he was shopping and he was able to provide receipts from all the places that he went. So police asked to talk to Kevin again. Now, Kevin lives in Northwest Arkansas at this point, and he is coming down for Nona's visitation the same day. But Kevin tells the police, he's like, hey, yes, I can come in and talk to you, but I have Nona's visitation later on today. So I need to leave the police station with enough time to be there. And Kevin has like helped set up the visitation. He's picked out pictures with the family. He helped pick out the casket. Like he's planning on going to the visitation. Police are like, yeah, that's no problem. We'll make sure you're out of here in time. We just have a few questions. So Kevin is like, I gotta get down from Fayetteville to Russellville within enough time to answer all of these questions for police and make the visitation. So he ends up getting there. Police question him for hours and hours and hours. They're giving him like the whole treatment, the whole like good cop, bad cop. They leave him alone in the room. A different cop comes in, just like all the things. Kevin sticks to his story. He says that he planned on marrying Nona. He had no idea that she was talking to other men. And when police confront him about the condom, Kevin says that it's not his. He doesn't use that kind or whatever. And he says the only thing that he can think of is that Nona was assaulted when she was killed. Kevin literally begs to do a DNA test or anything that police need. And police are like, okay, well, if you want to take a polygraph, we'll give you a polygraph. Mistake number one, because Kevin fails this polygraph. The man who gave him the lie detector test said that he had not seen anyone fail a test worse than Kevin did in his 28 years of giving lie detector tests. Not great. We know how we all feel about polygraphs, but he does fail it. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. At this point, the cops are no longer like good cop, bad cop. They are saying, we know that you did it. We now have the evidence. We have everything against you. You did this. Kevin probably doesn't know that this exam is not even admissible in court or that he should ask for an attorney. He's 19 years old. He doesn't ask for an attorney the entire time. And he's thinking that he's doing everything he can to plead his innocence. Okay, this is like a crazy side story. So while all this is going on, Kevin's family knows that he's there and they start getting calls from people in the community saying, Kevin's at the police station. He doesn't know he can leave. He doesn't know to ask for an attorney. You guys need to get him out of there. So he has family and friends that are literally at the police station trying to yell for him to get up and leave, like screaming in the police station, get Kevin, like get up and go. You can leave. You're allowed to leave. Kevin's mom and dad come down there, and Kevin's dad actually takes a chair and throws it at the wall, thinking that it's just gonna like make a bunch of racket, make a bunch of noise, like make the cops come out of the interrogation room. The chair actually ends up going through the wall because this wall's like sheetrock, I guess. And then they arrest Kevin's dad at the police station. So then Kevin's mom is screaming for Kevin to get up and walk out, and they ask her to leave. So it's just this like big pandemonium outside of the police station.
If I were his parents, I'd be doing the same thing though.
Yeah, same. During the interrogation, the investigators tell Kevin that they are already calling a press conference to announce his guilt to the entire town. The investigator says, you just can't keep this kind of evidence in this long. It's going to come out. It's going to come to life. Like, we don't have a choice but to call this press conference and announce that you're guilty, which we know is completely ridiculous. Investigative information stays concealed for like years, sometimes decades, to preserve the integrity of the case until police are 100% certain that they have the right person. This turns out to not only be dangerous to Kevin, but dangerous to the integrity of Nona's case. Police end up letting Kevin go that day, and Kevin ends up missing Nona's visitation, which starts the rumors in the town
Oh no.
because now Kevin didn't show up to Nona's visitation.
And he was at the jail all day and everyone knows it.
Police stick to their word and they actually do call a press conference that day and they announce that they have eliminated all but one suspect. And they don't name Kevin, but pretty much everybody knows exactly who they're talking about. The police also pay a visit to the Dirksmeyer family and they tell them that Kevin is responsible for Nona's death. They tell the family this.
They're so bold for being so stupid.
Yeah, very, very bold. They tell Nona's parents that they believe that on the night Nona was murdered, after Kevin left the apartment, Kevin then used his key to get back into her apartment and surprise her. This is when he sees the condom, knew it wasn't his, and he snapped. He killed Nona with a knife and then beat her in the head with the bottom of this heavy lamp in her apartment. Then he left, cleaned himself up, and then set the scene to like walk in on Nona dead. And he knows how to do this because he watches a lot of Law and Order. So he made sure that his mom was around when he talked about needing to get a hold of Nona because he was worried. He texted her all day so that there would be a breadcrumb trail of evidence. And those texts, the good morning cuddle bug, the you alive, while he had already killed Nona. So he sent his friend over there. When his friend couldn't get in, he went to check on her himself to discover her with a witness to know that he was not there, his mother. And then he intentionally gets his DNA all over the scene and gets Nona's blood all over himself so that there would be no way of questioning why his DNA was at the crime scene. But Nona's parents do what most people would do, and they trust the police, even though they didn't have any reason to think that Kevin was capable of something like this. So Nona's mom and dad asked Kevin to not sit with them at the funeral, which just like stirs up more and more rumors within this really small town. So police continue the investigation, and the only physical evidence that police find becomes the most talked about piece in this case. Investigators discover on the light bulb of the lamp that was used to kill Nona, there was a fingerprint made in blood, and it was Kevin's fingerprint.
Oh,
It's not weird that Kevin's fingerprints are all over the apartment. The problem is that the fingerprint was made in blood. They were actually able to uncover his whole palm print. So Kevin Jones is immediately arrested on March 31st, 2006. Kevin's attorney immediately asked the court to change the location of the trial, a motion for change of venue, which is for obvious reasons. Russellville is so small, and the town was filled with the rumors that Kevin was guilty, mostly because police had told the family and everyone else that Kevin pretty much did it. Luckily, the judge agreed and granted the change of venue. Let's talk about the trial. We'll talk about the non-physical and circumstantial evidence first. First, the defense had eyewitness testimony, and this eyewitness was a plumber named Danny Green. Danny Green said on the morning of December 15th, 2005, he was working on a plumbing issue in Nona's apartment building. He knocked on Nona's door mid-morning, somewhere between 8:30 and 9 a.m. He said that is when he heard movement inside the apartment. It sounded like someone was walking or shuffling about, but no one answered the door, so he left. And if that is true, it means that Nona was still alive that morning between 8:30 and 9:30, hours that Kevin Jones had already left Russellville and returned home to Dover with his family. So the murder would have had to have been between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. when Kevin was verifiably somewhere else. Remember, the forensic pathologists were only able to tell us that Nona was killed early that morning or late the night before. The prosecution still says, well, maybe the plumber misheard, or maybe Kevin just came by after that time and killed Nona after 8:30 or 9. The prosecution then brings up that for about an hour and a half on December 15th, Kevin's phone was turned off between 10:30 and noon. That could have been within the time frame that Nona was killed. So that doesn't really look great for Kevin.
no, but the fact that they don't have an exact or even a narrow time of death makes this all very confusing.
Yeah. And it's not like it's an iPhone where we all have chargers with us constantly. It's like this is flip phone era. This is like your phone dies all the time and you don't get to charge it till you get home that night kind of deal, you know?
Those are the days.
So, I mean, it doesn't look great that his phone died for an hour and a half, but yeah. Going through the physical evidence. First, the blood. Remember, there was a palm print and a fingerprint on the light bulb of the light that inflicted the last blow to Nona's head. The court is going to debate the texture of this blood till they're blue in the face, and this is important because the defense is going to argue that Kevin touched the light bulb that was beside Nona's body while he was panicking. He was like picking up her body, like flailing around, and he touched the light bulb with Nona's blood that he picked up in that moment. But if any of the blood was dry, then it had time to dry, and Kevin would have had to have made it earlier in the day while he was killing Nona.
See, I'm not very confident that they can even determine if it was dry or not if they didn't even process the crime scene when they got there.
Exactly. Also, the blood is described as tacky, and that's like a very subjective meaning. Like, what is tacky? Also, tacky is like a feeling, and they can't touch the blood. So they don't actually know the real consistency of the blood at all.
And also it depends on like the amount of it. I mean, if it's like a considerable amount, it would take longer to dry. But if it's just like a little tiny bit, it would be dry before the cops even got there.
And what's weird is that the prosecution claims that even a week later, the blood on the light bulb was still tacky. They claim that it's just not going to fully dry on the light bulb ever. The defense
Okay.
claims that if it's tacky at the time and tacky a week later, then what does that even prove?
That is a good point.
So either way, they don't know.
The only reason I could see it still not being dry is they like immediately put it into like a Ziploc bag, like vacuum sealed it.
Back, yeah, exactly, which maybe they did. So, next, the condom wrapper. We know that there was an empty condom wrapper found on the table at the crime scene with no condom. The investigators tested it for fingerprints, but nothing. Then I guess the wrapper got retested at some point, and then boom, there was fingerprints. And I won't leave you hanging. This fingerprint is not a match to Kevin. It was a match to an unknown male. But of course, this goes right along with the prosecutor's theory that Nona had slept with another man. Kevin saw the condom, knew it wasn't his, and killed her. Also, would like to point out that the man that allegedly slept with Nona, that Kevin was mad about, that he found out about, that guy never comes forward.
So they couldn't even like find him like in her text messages.
No. They also talk about those really faint scratches on Kevin's hands. The prosecution claimed that they could have come from Nona fighting back, but Kevin's mother gets up and testifies that they were from Kevin playing with their family dog before the murder. They tested under Nona's fingernails, and no DNA or skin matched Kevin. She couldn't have done that to his hands.
No.
She would have had his skin under her fingernails. Next, some reports mention microscopic blood transfer on Kevin's pants. However, this was never conclusively linked to Nona, and the defense pointed out that contamination at the scene was possible since he found her body. By the way, this is also a great time to bring up the polygraph examiner because we remember that Kevin failed that polygraph worse than the examiner had seen in 28 years. Unfortunately, for pretty much everyone involved, this polygraph examiner was not a polygraph examiner. He was not certified.
He's just a random dude.
I guess he was just a man that gave polygraph exams, but he was not certified, which is like kind of what you want out of your polygraph examiner.
It's just a hobby, guys.
Yeah, he's just out there reading drawings. So it doesn't really matter because it can't be used in trial anyways, but it's definitely one of those things that like people use to point out that Kevin was guilty. Just wanted to throw that out there at this time. So the jury had a hard time, but they finally reached a verdict and it was not guilty. Nona's stepdad stood up in the courtroom and yelled, "You got away with it, Kevin. You got away with it." Kevin Jones was acquitted. But we're not done here. Kevin may not have done it, but someone did, and investigators have to keep looking. The best bet we have at this point is the condom wrapper with fingerprints on it. Police hone in on this evidence. They test it against all the men they know of in Nona's life, and it is no match. So police just kind of wait. That is until 2007. Intro Gary Dunn. 2007, a man named Gary Dunn was arrested for burglary, and police are thinking, why does this guy's name sound familiar? And that is because he was Nona's neighbor at the time she was killed, and he was actually questioned by police. Police take his DNA when he was arrested, and it's tested against the condom wrapper. And wouldn't you know it, it was a match.
Oh my God, see what happens when you investigate?
Yeah. However, it was not like a ballpark match. It was not a match to the percent certainty that it could be used in court. But the odds of it not being him were like crazy, like one in a whatever crazy number. Unfortunately, can't be used in court. So that really sucks. So now Dunn is definitely getting questioned about Nona's murder. Investigators talk to him, but he tells them that there was no way he could have killed Nona because he was with his mom all day and they were running errands, and he actually has all the receipts from all the stores that they went to. And his mother backs this up and she provides all the receipts. So they let Gary go.
She had all these receipts like 3 years later.
Yeah, apparently. So Gary was a free man for a hot minute. That is until police realized that they forgot when Nona was killed and the receipts were all for the wrong day. They were for December 13th, not the day that Nona was killed, December 15th or 14th. Now, later on, we're going to learn that back in the day when Nona was killed, police knew that Dunn didn't have an alibi for that day and they either missed it or they ignored it. It was in the case file that Dunn had no alibi. Thankfully, police saw the error in their ways and they arrested Gary Dunn for the murder of Nona Dirksmeyer. Now on to the second trial, the trial of Gary Dunn. Trial, we obviously have No evidence from the condom because we can't use that because it's not a high enough percentage to be used in court of a match to his DNA. But we know that Gary has no alibi, but we're kind of going to trial with not that much conclusive evidence against Gary Dunn.
I mean, without the condom wrapper, we don't. Do we have anything?
Not really. We have Gary Dunn's ex-wife who gets on the stand and testifies that Gary was completely obsessed with Nona. She lived with Gary at the time that Nona was murdered, and she actually caught Gary peeping in Nona's windows in the middle of the night. She also testifies that he was physically abusive, but the defense pulls a really strange move here, and they actually subpoena Kevin and get Kevin on the stand. They get him on the stand and they grill him about Nona's cheating. They talk about how calculated Kevin was, how he did things to establish an alibi, how he acted strange when he found Nona dead, and how calm he was afterwards. Now, I know you're thinking there's no way this worked. There's no way that the jury believed that there was a possibility that Kevin did this when a man was sitting right in front of him that was like obsessed with Nona. You would be wrong because the jury was deadlocked. The judge declared a mistrial for Gary Dunn. So, what they were doing by putting Kevin Jones on the stand was they were trying to put doubt in the juror's mind that Gary Dunn could have done this.
I understand, but I mean, Kevin was acquitted. Like, why would the judge even allow them to create that reasonable doubt with him? Like, that doesn't make sense to me legally.
Yeah, it's a very strange case.
I'm pissed off, by the way.
Yeah. They round everyone back up and they headed back for Gary Dunn's second trial. And they shook things up a bit because they brought in some new evidence. The prosecution called to the stand Kelly Harris, who testified that Gary Dunn had attacked her too. Kelly was actually running on a trail called Bonadilla. And Bonadilla is like this really weird secluded trail in Russellville. It's surrounded by woods and like kind of swampy areas. It's honestly kind of a very creepy running trail, in my opinion. She was running when a man just like popped out of the woods, grabbed her, threw her to the ground, and told her that he was going to kill her. Miraculously, Kelly fought off her attacker and was able to escape and get to the police. She said that the man that did this was standing right in front of her, Mr. Gary Dunn. Police go out to where Kelly said this happened and they stumble upon Gary Dunn and he is like hiding in a stream, like crouched down in this water at the Bonadilla Trail. So he gets arrested. He spends 18 measly months in jail. Right after he gets out of jail for this, he then moves into the apartment right beside Nona. Thank God apartments do background checks nowadays. This is still not enough evidence for the jury, and we get another hung jury.
How many times is this gonna happen?
So now we're just kind of sitting here with an unresolved case. After his acquittal in 2007, Kevin Jones filed a federal civil rights suit against the city of Russellville and the police chief James Bacon and detectives involved in the investigation. He alleged false arrests, malicious prosecution, violation of due process, the 14th Amendment, negligent investigation, and failure to consider exculpatory evidence. The lawsuit detailed a cascade of investigative errors and bias that began the moment officers arrived at the scene December 15th, 2005. Kevin claims from the beginning they zeroed in on Kevin. Detectives admitted under oath that they began treating Kevin like a suspect immediately after they found Nona's body. They did not seriously pursue any other leads, including the neighbor, who did not have an alibi and who had just gotten out of jail for attacking another woman. Kevin also points out in his suit that officers failed to photograph or log several items before moving them. Gloves weren't worn consistently, leading to cross-contamination. The lamp base was handled by Kevin, officers, EMTs, and investigators. Blood samples and trace evidence were collected without proper chain of custody documentation, and a forensic expert would later testify that the entire crime scene had been compromised within hours of discovery. Kevin's suit went on and survived motions to dismiss, but several claims were barred by qualified immunity, which is the doctrine that shields police officers and municipalities from civil rights damages unless there's like a clearly established right that was violated. Before the case went to trial, the parties reached a confidential settlement. What happened to Gary Dunn? Question mark. Well, he would go on to live in Russellville for another 15 years.
And they just let him do that?
For 15 years, he just gets to walk around free. And that is until he tries to kidnap a woman in a church parking lot in Russellville. This was when I was in college. He tried to force her into his car. And then that same day, he exposed himself to a young woman in a parking lot. Finally, he was caught after that and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He's sitting in the Department of Corrections right now in Arkansas, but only for 15 years. He will get out, so I'll leave you with that.
People of Russellville, stay armed.
Yeah, stay safe out there. Kevin Jones proceeded to go to law school and start a family. He now practices in Arkansas. And at one time, he was practicing in Russellville, which is wild that he would stick around this town. Arkansas Tech established a scholarship in Nona's name, but the murder of Nona Dirksmeyer is still technically an unsolved case. Although I think most people would believe that Gary Dunn was the murderer, we still don't have a concrete answer. So maybe when Dunn gets out of prison, we can see a third trial for Mr. Gary Dunn, if we are so lucky. And that is Nona Dirksmeyer's case.
One, that was frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Two, as a Russellville native, are there people who still think Kevin is guilty?
Oh, yes.
Oh no.
Yeah, there are, and I don't really understand why they think that, but I mean, I don't.
I just need to look at the evidence, people.
And I think that it's hard because I don't think there's a lot of good evidence against Gary Dunn, like a lot of concrete evidence that can be used in trial, although I think he did it.
I mean, I'm very adamant that Kevin didn't do it, and I mean, yeah, evidence isn't great, but he's next best in line.
Yeah. And that's that. Should we jump into overtime?
Let's do it. My prompt for the day was things that businesses need to cut it out with when
You're like, I got a lot.
I have a whole list.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a professional hater,
You are. You're a serial hater.
serial hater. A bar or restaurant renaming like a normal cocktail, like just a martini, okay? A normal
Hmm.
martini. And they give it some special weird name. They don't change like a single ingredient.
Yeah.
And you say, "Oh, I want a martini." And they're like, "Oh, the blah 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 martini."
Hmm.
I hate that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't rename it if you didn't change a single thing on it. I know I worked retail for a bit, and I know they really want you to push like credit cards, like get people to sign up for the store credit cards. But
Hmm.
I go check out and I buy like one thing, and my total is $10. Do not ask me if I want to sign up for a credit card and save 20% off on my purchase.
Yeah, I hate the people that push it so hard. I understand that like you have to do that. That's your job as a cashier sometimes to like push the card. But like I usually am just like, no, thank you, maybe next time. But then I've had people that are like, are you sure? Are you sure you're gonna save 20%? You don't want that 20%? You don't uh, like I've had conversations continue so long where I'm like, I don't want it.
Don't believe in credit cards.
Yeah, that happened to me actually one time, not with a credit card, but with a subscription to a car wash. I thought I was about to be held hostage, like in this car wash. This person was trying to ask me to sign up, and he was trying to convince me like how it was an economical decision and basically like called me like dumb for not signing up for this car wash. He's like, "It looks like you've been here, let's see, once a week for a couple months. You know you could be saving this much money." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't want to." But I want you to leave me alone. That's what I want. And I'm
I
about to
don't
switch car washes just because I don't want to talk to you.
I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want a subscription. I don't want any cards. I don't want you to have my email address.
Yeah.
Or God forbid my phone number. I don't
God forbid.
I whatever you send me coupons and stuff. I'd rather spend more to see less of you.
I'd rather spend more to see less of you. I love that. No, same. Actually, in that same car wash situation, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it was one of those things where it's like you pull up to this screen and you like it's a touch screen and you tap what you want. But they had a guy standing there tapping it for me, trying to sell me this subscription. And I'm like, I can press things. You're standing here to sell me something. Just get out of here.
I don't understand that. Or like I've been in like parking garages and there's like an attendant at the parking garage that pushes the button to give you the ticket and hands it to you. Like what?
That's
I
probably
mean,
someone off the street that just wants a tip.
I don't tip them. I mean, get your bag.
Yeah.
A job's a job, but I don't understand the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's kind of embarrassing because it's happened before to me when I show up at a restaurant and it's empty inside and I go up to the hostess and they ask if I have a reservation, even though it's empty inside.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it was last Thanksgiving or the one before I booked a reservation. I think it was either Thanksgiving night or the night before, and I thought it was going to be busy, so I booked a reservation online. I show up
Hmm.
and the like host stand, it's like in this little alcove, like you can't see the rest of the restaurant. And I like walk in
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, rest or reservation for Kylie, blah blah blah. And she's like, okay, didn't like look at the book or anything. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I like walk into the restaurant with the whole family. There's no one in there. I felt
Like,
like such an asshole for saying I had a reservation.
like, yeah, don't care.
They're like, oh no, everyone's like at home. It's Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, sorry.
But yeah, when you walk in and they're like, "Do you have a reservation?" It's like, "Do I need one?"
I don't have a party of 20. I think we can make this work, guys. This happened last weekend. If I'm at like a quick serve restaurant, like
Hmm.
you like go up to the counter, pay whatever, and they like bring your food out, and it's not abundantly clear if I have to take my plates and like drop them off somewhere or if they're going to
Yes.
come clean up the table.
Yeah.
I sat in this restaurant for an extra 20 minutes last weekend by myself, waiting for someone else to get up and leave to see what they did.
I've done the same thing at like little coffee shops and stuff, like where you bust your own table. Also, can we stop that? I mean, please, I know that I don't know. I feel like we're also taking jobs away from bus people, okay? I'd rather tip someone that busts my table, which I don't do, but I would if it meant that I didn't have to do it myself.
If I have to go to the trash can and scrape the food off and put the little plate in a little bin, I'm
Yeah.
pissed off.
I'm sorry. That's probably like a controversial hot take, but it's just like you go to a restaurant so you don't have to cook anything. So you don't have to clean up. So you don't have to do anything. That's the point.
I'm here to be pampered.
Yeah.
Knocking on the fitting room door asking how I'm doing while I'm
Yeah.
in there trying on clothes.
Lululemon.
All the time. Ask, how's it going? Do you need anything? Blah, blah, blah. It always makes me feel like I'm taking too long and I
Mm-hmm.
feel rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if I am taking too long, it's because I'm sending pictures to you guys asking for outfit
Yeah.
approval before I buy it.
If I need a different size, I will put my clothes on. I will take what I have back, go put it back and get another size like a normal person. I'm not gonna ask anybody to do anything for me.
Oh, I have never once asked someone to go get me a different size, other than like my mother.
Yeah.
Oh, lady at Sephora did this to me the other day. This is what happens when I leave the house. I start a list of things I hate about
Yeah.
people out in public. Like our Sephora is like the one that's like inside of like a Kohl's. Like we don't have like a
Yeah.
standalone one. So I go to Kohl's, I get some pajamas, and then I grab a couple things at Sephora, and I go to check out, and she's like, "Oh, I can use your like the pajamas or whatever from Kohl's, like you can check out everything here." And I was like, "Okay, great." And she's like, "Okay, quick, like what's your phone number?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have a rewards account." And she was like, "You don't have a Sephora rewards account?" And I was like, "No, no, and I don't want one. I don't care. I don't care."
Yeah.
She was like, "Okay, well, our receipt printer thing's broken, but we can email it to you. What's your email?" Put my email in. Guess who fucking signed me up for the Sephora and Kohl's rewards account
That's not right.
against my consent?
And with that, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you liked this case, you can follow us on social media at Over My Dead Pod. Follow us on Spotify and Instagram and Facebook and all the things. See you next week with another case. Bye.
Bye.